Hey Ransom teens, first thing, if you're able, get a group of friends from your neighborhood together or your family, or maybe text some people and ask them to watch this video with you, because it's really important that we watch this in community. So go do that now before you continue with the video at all. Make sure you've got a group that's either watching it at the same time or even together. That'll make this video even better. Go for it. All right, Pastor Ryley here on what has been a pretty crazy week, wouldn't you agree? I'm sure it's been wild for you guys, as many of you are off school or even now taking classes online now. You're not sure what the future holds when it comes to how the rest of the school year will play out. Man, it's pretty wild. Those of you who are homeschooled, maybe you've experienced less changes, maybe not. And if you think about it, now everybody's kind of homeschooled, so finally people might understand you. Probably not though. Just a little shout out to my homeschooled homies. But this season has seemed chaotic to me. That's the word I would use for it. The news is going crazy. Everyone and their brother has an idea of what's really going on here. Very few people agree. Some people are mad. Some are afraid. Everyone's buying toilet paper. They're using hand sanitizer and soap like it's going out of style. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? And all the while, we're in a series at Ransom Teens called Stuff We Skip, where we're talking about stuff we should talk about, but in youth groups, it's just really hard to talk about, so we tend to skip right over it. And pandemics would probably fit in this category. Where is God when it seems like the world is falling apart? That's a really great question. Maybe for you, it feels less like a pandemic and it feels more like full-on panic. So we're going to talk about this. We're not skipping over it. And in this season, it's made me ask a lot of questions around the idea and the reality of fear. Maybe you've been asking those questions too. So in a second, I want to pause the video and ask you to ask yourself a question. I want you to ask yourself, what is my greatest fear? It might not be about coronavirus, but maybe it is. Maybe for you, it's public speaking, or it's about friends, or school. What is it? Spiders, heights? What's your biggest fear? I want you to be really specific and honest with yourself. And once you've got it locked in, you can play the video again. Okay, so you just asked yourself what your greatest fear is, and you've identified it. Maybe you shared it with a friend or a family member. But I figured if I was going to ask you to do this, I'd have to be honest with myself. So those of you who love language, you'll dig this, you'll like this. My greatest fear, Pastor Ryley's greatest fear, aerophobia. Any guesses? Air. Is it fear of the air? Well, sort of. It's fear of flying. Now, I never used to be afraid of this, but a lot of my more recent flights have been really bad with tons of turbulence. So I don't love flying, but I don't hyperventilate and lose my mind either. I'm somewhere in between. And some of you have different fears than I do, but whatever they are, there are some ways you might deal with those fears. Now, I want to talk about 3 ways that we deal with our fears, whatever they might be. First, fight. Some of you do your best to fight when things seem out of control, when things are scary. You toughen up. You pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You just push through. So maybe you're scared of going to college, but if you just fill out enough applications, you think you'll be fine. You might be afraid of looking dumb in front of people or embarrassing yourself, so you overcompensate by being the funny person. Fighting doesn't always look like physical violence. We fight our fears in many different ways. But maybe you don't, relate to that. Maybe for you, it's not fighting your fears. For you, it might be flight. Now, not literally flying away, which I just said would be scary to me. Some of you do your best to run away when things seem out of control. You get scared. You hide. You avoid things. You try to control your circumstances as best you can so you won't have to freak out. You're scared of a hard conversation with a friend, so you avoid them. You're scared that your parents won't be happy with you and things at home are going to be hard, so you just try to be perfect so that everything will be okay. You don't fight, you flight. You run away, but some of you don't fight or run. You might take a third option, which is very tempting. You freeze. Some of you don't fight, but you don't fly or run away. You don't know what to do, so you just freeze. You don't get mad. You don't run away. You just do nothing. Maybe you find yourself avoiding your problems and just filling your time with video games, food, working out. Maybe the way that you freeze is by pushing into some of those habits of gluttony we talked about last week. Okay, so it's time for you to ask yourself a new question. You just worked through your biggest fear, and now we're going to ask another question. One that you'll want to pause the video for and think through, maybe share with the people watching with you. Here's the question. How do I respond to my greatest fear? Do you tend to fight? Do you flight, run away? Do you freeze, not knowing what to do? Okay, take a minute and answer that question for yourself. And once you've got the answer, I want you to press play again. And I'm so glad you've joined us this week by watching this video, because Jesus offers a different way to respond to our fears. He doesn't teach us to fight. He doesn't teach us flight or to run. He doesn't teach us to freeze. Let's check out how we can respond to our fears by looking at this short story that many of us have heard from Luke 8:22-25. One day Jesus said to his disciples, "Let's cross to the other side of the lake." So they got in a boat and they started out. And as they sailed across, Jesus settled down for a nap. But soon a fierce storm came down on the lake. The boat was filling with water and they were in real danger. The disciples went and woke him, shouting, "Master, Master, we're going to drown." When Jesus woke up, he rebuked the wind and the raging waves. And suddenly the storm stopped and all was calm. And then he asked them, "Where is your faith?" The disciples were terrified and amazed. "Who is this man?" they asked each other. "When he gives a command, even the wind and the waves obey him." Now, what does this story about Jesus calming the storm have to do with our fears in general, and maybe coronavirus specifically? It's not that we sleep through the problems or pretend they aren't real. It's that we put our faith in the one who can do something about it. When our fears are real, we don't have to fight. We don't have to run. We don't have to freeze. What we need is faith. The disciples get a bad rap for being afraid here, and I don't think we need to be so hard on them. Instead, I think I'm impressed because when things are out of control for them and this storm is going to make them drown, they go to the one who's in control, and that's Jesus. Matthew and Mark's Gospels tell the same story in a little bit of a different way. Jesus says things to his disciples differently. You see, in Matthew, he looks at the disciples and he says, "You of little faith." A little bit condemning or intense, it kind of feels like. In Mark, he asks a question of them. Do you still have no faith? Kind of like an accusation, it feels like. But in Luke's gospel, it asks it so well. Where is your faith? In this life, you're going to have fears, but you get to choose where your faith goes when you're afraid. And I want to ask you today, Ransom teens, in this season, where is your faith? Now, what would it look like this week when everything's unknown and crazy to put your hope in Jesus? not in your ability to quarantine or practice social distancing, not in your ability to plan, not in the government and our doctors, hoping they can create a cure ASAP. Now, these are not bad, but what would it look like to trust Jesus in these moments of fear in our life? So I beg you this week, whatever your fears are, don't fight, don't run away, don't freeze, choose faith. Because you know the one who holds the whole world in his hands. You know the one who's in control. Over the wind, over the waves, the one who's in control over coronavirus. He's got it all under control. Put your faith in him. All right, last question for you. You're going to pause the video again. You're going to answer it with the people you're messaging with or the people you're sitting with. Here's the question. How does knowing Jesus change my response? So you've got your greatest fear. You've got your response. How does knowing Jesus change that response? And if you've never began a relationship with Jesus, shoot me an email, riley@ransom.church. I really want to talk to you. It's a huge thing of what we're doing. We're introducing students to this Jesus that we're talking about that can give you hope and give you peace in the middle of the craziest circumstances. Now take a moment, wrestle with that question, and then once you've answered it, I want you to finish playing the video for one final challenge. So you're going to hear a lot of things in the upcoming days and weeks, maybe even in the upcoming months. So many of them will have the potential to freak you out. And in those moments of fear, you can choose to fight, you can choose flight or to run away, you can choose to freeze, or you can choose to have faith. So here's your challenge for this week. While we're being smart by practicing social distancing, our opportunity to grow in our faith is still here. And one way we do that is by building community and relationships. So, here's your challenge should you choose to accept it. It's to reach out to someone, either in your small group, your friend group, your neighborhood, your family. Share this link and ask them to watch this video. And then start a conversation around how to put more of your hope in Jesus. I dare you to share this video even with somebody who doesn't go to church. I believe you can do this. Not only that, once you've started having the conversations with friends and your peers, start messaging some of your leaders. Talk to them about how it's been going. What does hope look like in the middle of this fear? So, message a leader about how you're pursuing this challenge. Let's get a healthy response going. Being distanced socially does not mean being distanced relationally. So no matter how long we go not meeting in person, we're going to continue to be a part of your lives and to be there for you. So your leaders love you. We can't wait to see you again, but until then, let's keep the conversation going. Can't wait to talk to you and see you really soon. See you later.